The steady hum of the Horizon's engines filled the command deck as Captain Olivia Grant checked the ship's sensors for the third time. The small exploration vessel had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach this unexplored sector, following strange energy readings that Earth's automated probes had detected months earlier. "Are you sure about these coordinates, Lieutenant Powell?" Olivia asked, looking at the barren moon displayed on the main screen. It orbited a massive gas giant with swirling purple and blue clouds. The moon itself looked unremarkable, gray, cratered, and apparently lifeless. Sam Powell nodded confidently. "Yes, Captain. The energy spikes were definitely coming from the northern hemisphere of this moon." He had a talent for spotting things others missed, which was why Olivia had requested him specifically for this mission. "Dr. Murphy, anything?" "On your scans?" Olivia turned to the ship's xenobiologist, who was hunched over his workstation. Alan Murphy frowned at his screen, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. "Nothing obvious, Captain, but... wait." He adjusted something on his panel. "There's something strange here. Very faint biosignatures unlike anything in our database." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Life? On that rock?" "It appears so," Alan said, his voice growing excited. "But it's not what we'd typically recognize as life. The signatures are tiny, almost like microorganisms, but they're giving off patterns that suggest intelligence." "Take us into orbit," Olivia ordered. "Standard approach, but I want all sensors at maximum sensitivity." The Horizon glided smoothly, into position above the moon's gray surface. For an hour they scanned the area where the readings were strongest. "Captain, I think we should send down a landing party," Alan finally suggested. "These readings, they're extraordinary. If I'm right, we might be looking at life forms that operate on a quantum level." Olivia considered this. First contact scenarios were always risky, but this was what they had come for. "Agreed. Prepare the shuttle. Lieutenant Powell, Dr. Murphy, you're with me." The shuttle landed on a flat plain near a cluster of crystal formations that jutted from the ground like transparent fingers reaching for the stars. The 3 crew members stepped out in their environmental suits, the low gravity making them feel strangely light. "Over here," Alan called, his scanner beeping softly. "The signals are coming from inside these crystal structures." They approached, cautiously. At first glance, the crystals seemed empty, merely reflecting the light from their suit lamps. But as they drew closer, Alan gasped. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Olivia squinted. Inside the crystals, tiny points of light moved in, patterns that seemed too ordered to be random. "What are they?" "I think," Alan said slowly, "we're looking at a completely new form of intelligent life." The points of light seemed to notice them. They gathered near the surface of the crystal nearest to the humans, pulsing in synchronized patterns. "They're trying to communicate," Sam said, his voice filled with wonder. Alan quickly set up a device that could project light patterns. "Let me try something simple," he said, programming a basic mathematical sequence. 1 flash, 2 flashes, 3 flashes. The lights inside the crystal paused, then responded with the next in the sequence, 4 flashes. "They understand." Alan exclaimed. Over the next several hours, they established a primitive form of communication. The beings, which the crew started calling the Luminari, could manipulate light and energy in ways that defied human understanding. Through increasingly complex exchanges, Alan began to translate their light language. Back on the Horizon, they continued their efforts to communicate. After 3 days of work, a breakthrough came. "They're saying they've been hiding," Alan explained to Olivia as they watched the light patterns dance across a special screen he had designed. "They've encountered other space-traveling species before, but none recognized them as intelligent beings." "What happened?" Olivia asked. Alan's face darkened. "The other species harvested the crystals. To them, the Luminari were invisible or mistaken for simple natural phenomena." Olivia felt a chill run through her. "They killed them without even knowing?" "Worse," Alan said. "The Luminari say some species did realize they might be sentient, but ignored this to keep taking the crystals, which apparently have unique properties." "Over," The following weeks, the crew learned more about the Luminari. Despite their tiny size, each being no larger than a grain of sand, they possessed remarkable abilities to manipulate energy at the quantum level. They lived in complex societies inside their crystal homes with culture, art, and science that had developed over thousands of years. "Captain," Alan said one evening, his face glowing with excitement. "They're showing me something incredible." On his screen, the Luminary had created a detailed model of an energy system that human scientists had only theorized about, a method of using quantum entanglement for instant communication across vast distances. "They use this in their daily lives," Alan explained. "What our best scientists have only dreamed about, they've been doing for centuries." Olivia watched the display in amazement. These beings that everyone else overlooked, they could revolutionize human technology. "There's more," Sam added. "I've been analyzing the records they shared. At least 3 advanced civilizations have visited this moon over the past 1,000 years. All took crystals. None acknowledged. The Luminary is sentient." Olivia's jaw tightened. "That won't happen again, not while we're here." That night, Olivia made an entry in her captain's log. "We've made contact with a remarkable species that calls themselves the Luminary. They've been overlooked and exploited by other civilizations for centuries. I'm recommending to Earth Command that we establish formal diplomatic relations and offer them protection. These beings have much to teach us, not just about science, but about resilience and survival. Humanity will not make the mistake of overlooking them." As she finished her log, a message came through from Alan in the lab. "Captain, you need to see this." When she arrived, the lab was dark except for a glowing crystal container where thousands of Luminari had gathered. Together, they were creating a perfect miniature representation of the horizon in light, down to the tiniest detail. "They're thanking us," Alan whispered, "for seeing them." Olivia watched the beautiful display, knowing that this first contact would change both species forever. Humanity had found not just new allies but a responsibility. Where others had overlooked, they would protect. 6 months had passed since the Horizon's crew discovered the Luminari. In that time, Earth had established a small research base on the moon and learned much about the tiny beings and their remarkable abilities. Now, humanity was ready to take its place among the stars by joining the Alliance of Worlds. Ambassador Eric Daniels straightened his formal uniform as he prepared to enter the Great Hall of the Alliance. The massive circular chamber was designed to impress and intimidate, with towering walls that stretched hundreds of feet upward to a glass dome showing the stars beyond. "Remember, keep it simple," Commander Kate Sutton whispered as they walked toward the center platform. As the military attaché to the diplomatic team, she was more concerned with assessing potential threats than with the diplomatic niceties. "I know what I'm doing," Eric replied with a confident smile. He had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Representatives from 27 different species sat in rising tiers around the chamber. Some looked almost human, while others were so alien that Eric couldn't even guess which parts of them might be faces. At the highest tier sat the 7 council members who ruled the Alliance, the most prominent being Councillor Vexthar, whose scaled skin glimmered under the lights. "Humans of Earth." Vexthar's voice boomed through the chamber, translated perfectly into English by the small device in Eric's ear. "You stand before the Alliance of Worlds to petition for membership. Present your case." Eric stepped forward. "Honorable Council, Earth, thanks you for this opportunity. Humanity has achieved faster-than-light travel only within the last decade, but we believe we can contribute much to the Alliance. We bring unique perspectives, advanced medical techniques, and a desire to learn from all species." The presentation continued smoothly as Eric outlined Earth's history, cultural achievements, and technological capabilities. The Council seemed mildly interested, occasionally asking questions about human social structures or industrial capacity. "Before we conclude," Eric said, "I would like to mention our recent first contact with a remarkable species called the Luminari, with whom we've established peaceful relations." A sudden commotion interrupted him. Several council members leaned forward, whispering urgently to their aides. Vexthar's eyes narrowed to slits. "The Luminari?" Vexthar questioned. Are you referring to the crystalline formations in Sector 87 Delta? Eric nodded, surprised. Yes, that's their home. The beings live within the crystal structures, and those resources have been periodically harvested by Alliance members for centuries. Interrupted another counselor, a gelatinous being named Moltar. They contain rare elements essential to certain technologies. The beings within them are sentient, Eric explained firmly. They have language, culture, and advanced scientific knowledge, particularly regarding quantum physics. Earth has recognized them as a sovereign species. Silence fell over the chamber. Commander Sutton noticed several representatives exchanging uncomfortable glances. This is unexpected, Vexthar finally said. We have no record of sentient life forms in that region. Kate leaned close to Eric. They're lying, she whispered. Look at the Zentari representative's reaction. Eric followed her gaze to a small bird-like being whose feathers had fluffed out in what appeared to be distress. Council, Eric said carefully. The Luminary have informed us that ships have visited their moon many times. They attempted communication, but were either not noticed or ignored. Vexthar waved a dismissive hand. Primitive energy patterns are common in such formations. They can mimic communication but are merely natural phenomena. With respect, Eric countered, we have confirmed their sentience beyond any doubt. They have shared knowledge with us that has already advanced our understanding of quantum mechanics by decades. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives demanded immediate access to the resources, while others called for a scientific expedition to verify the humans' claims. While the council argued, Kate slipped away to access a public terminal in the corridor outside. Using the credentials they had been given as diplomatic guests, she searched through Alliance records for any mention of the luminary moon. What she found made her blood run cold. When the session reconvened after a brief recess, Vexithar's tone had changed. The council has reviewed your petition, he announced. We are prepared to offer Earth provisional membership in the Alliance, with the condition that control of the crystalline moon in Sector 87 Delta be transferred to Alliance Authority for proper resource management. Eric frowned. And the Luminary themselves? A scientific commission will evaluate your claims of sentience, Vexithar replied smoothly. Until then, the area will be under Alliance protection. Before Eric could respond, Kate stepped forward. Ambassador, a moment please. She showed him the datapad she had brought back from the terminal. On it was a classified Alliance report from 80 years earlier, detailing the anomalous energy signatures within the crystals that suggest possible low-level sentience, but recommending continued harvesting due to the minimal ethical concerns compared to technological benefits. Eric's face hardened as he read. He looked up at the council, seeing them now in a new light. Councillor Vexithar, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Earth must respectfully decline your condition. Murmurs spread through the assembly. The Luminari are sentient beings, Eric continued. This report from your own scientist confirms what you've known for decades but chose to ignore. Earth recognizes the Luminari as a sovereign species with all rights pertaining thereto. Vexthar's scales darkened with anger. You are new to the galactic community, human. You do not understand the complexities of interspecies relations or resource allocation. The needs of the many advanced civilizations in this alliance outweigh concerns about primitive life forms. No, Eric said simply. They don't. Not to us. The chamber fell silent, all eyes on the human who had dared to defy the alliance's will. Earth withdraws its petition for membership, Eric announced. We cannot join an organization that would knowingly exploit a sentient species. Instead, we formally announce our recognition of the Luminari as a sovereign people and our intention to establish a protection treaty with them. As they left the chamber, Kate whispered, You realize what this means? We've just made enemies of the most powerful coalition in known space. Eric nodded grimly. Better to make enemies of the powerful than to betray the vulnerable. We need to contact Earth immediately. The Alliance won't let this stand. Behind them, the Council was already calling for an emergency session. The message spread quickly through diplomatic channels. The humans had defied the Alliance, and the Consequences would be severe. On the luminary moon, oblivious to the political storm brewing around them, thousands of tiny beings continued their peaceful existence, not yet knowing that humanity had just taken a stand that would change the fate of both their species forever. Admiral Lisa Wright stood at the viewport of her flagship, watching as more ships arrived in the luminary system. Earth had sent every available vessel, but even so, their fleet numbered only 32 ships. It would not be enough if the Alliance decided to use force. "Status report," she said to her second-in-command. "The last defense satellites are in position around the moon," he replied. "Dr. Chen's team has integrated some luminary technology into our shield systems, but they're still running tests." Lisa nodded. The situation had moved quickly since Earth's dramatic exit from the Alliance membership process 3 weeks ago. Earth's government had formally recognized the Luminary as a sovereign species and established a protection treaty. The Alliance had responded with diplomatic protests, economic sanctions, and now, thinly veiled military threats. Down on the moon's surface, Dr. Peter Chen worked frantically in the main research facility that had been built near the largest luminary crystal formation. Holographic displays filled the air around him, showing complex patterns of energy that made little sense to the human scientists, but were perfectly clear to the luminary. "The quantum harmonic stabilizers aren't aligning properly," Peter muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. A soft glow appeared on the table beside him, coalescing into a recognizable pattern. The luminary communicated through light, and after months of study, humans had developed translation systems that allowed for easier communication. "The resonance must match our crystal structures," the light pattern conveyed. "Your materials create interference." Peter adjusted some settings on his tablet. "What if we used a crystalline matrix instead of metal alloys for the focusing chambers?" Before the luminary could answer, Eli Martinez entered the lab. As the diplomatic liaison between Earth and the luminary, he spent most of his time ensuring both species understood each other. "Dr. Chen, the Luminary Council has called for a meeting," he said. "They say they have something important to show us." Peter looked up from his work. "Now? We're in the middle of critical defense system upgrades. They insist it's relevant to our defense efforts," Eli replied. They followed a young luminary guide, a pulsing light that moved through the air, deeper into the crystal caves than any human had gone before. After walking for 20 minutes, through increasingly narrow passages, they emerged into a vast underground chamber that took their breath away. The cavern stretched for at least a mile in every direction, its walls made of perfect crystal that reflected and amplified the light of thousands of luminary who hovered throughout the space. In the center stood a massive crystal formation that reached from floor to ceiling, pulsing with inner light. "What is this place?" Eli whispered. The translated voice of the luminary elder came through their communication devices. "This is the heart chamber. Our ancestors built it when they first came to this moon, fleeing those who would harm them." "You weren't always here?" Peter asked, surprised. "No. Long ago we lived on many worlds, but larger species either did not notice us or saw us as resources to be used. We gathered here hoping to live in peace." The elder guided them toward the central crystal. "We built defenses, but they have lain dormant for generations. Now we must awaken them." At a signal from the elder, thousands of luminari surrounded the central crystal, their lights pulsing in perfect synchronization. The giant crystal began to glow brighter, and patterns of energy flowed through the chamber floor in all directions. "What are they doing?" Eli asked, fascinated. "I think," Peter said slowly, "they're activating some kind of planetary defense system." The elder confirmed this. "The crystals throughout the moon are connected. When fully activated, they can generate an energy field that disrupts targeting systems and shields us from detection." "Why didn't you use this when other Alliance species came to harvest your crystals?" Eli asked. "It requires many thousands of us working together, and it cannot be maintained for long," the elder explained. "We chose hiding over confrontation. But now, with humans willing to stand with us, we will stand with you." Back on the flagship, Admiral Wright received a surprising message from the surface. According to Dr. Chen, the Luminari had ancient defense, technology that could significantly help their cause. It wasn't enough to win a war, but it might give them time to negotiate. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Alliance Command." On the main screen appeared the scaled face of the Alliance Fleet Commander. "This is your final warning," he said without preamble. "Remove your forces from the Luminari moon within 48 hours, or we will take action to secure Alliance resources." Lisa stood straight, her face calm despite the threat. "The Luminari are a sovereign species under Earth's protection. We will not abandon them." "Then you have chosen war with the entire Alliance," the commander replied. "No," Lisa countered. "You have chosen war by refusing to recognize the rights of a sentient species. The choice to avoid conflict remains yours." After the transmission ended, Lisa called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. They needed to prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, on the Luminari moon, something remarkable was happening. Eli had been invited to witness a gathering of the Luminari in one of their sacred chambers. Thousands of the tiny light beings floated in perfect formation, their combined glow almost too bright to look at directly. Slowly, their light began to shift and take shape in the center of the chamber. Eli gasped as he recognized what they were creating: a perfect holographic representation of Earth, showing every continent, ocean, mountain range, and even major cities in exquisite detail. "We have never seen your homeworld," the elder's voice explained, "but we have taken this image from your memories and those of other humans here. We create it as a sign of our gratitude and trust." Eli watched in awe as the miniature Earth rotated, slowly in the air, created entirely from the combined light of thousands of Luminari. Some of the military personnel who had come to witness the event wiped tears from their eyes. "We may be small," the elder continued, "but together with humans, we are strong. We have hidden for generations, but now we choose to stand with you, as you have stood for us." As Eli watched the beautiful display, a message came through on his communicator. The Alliance had issued an ultimatum. They had 48 hours before a possible attack. He looked back at the glowing image of Earth, created with such care by beings who had never seen it with their own senses, and felt a renewed determination. Humanity had made the right choice in protecting the Luminari no matter the cost. "We will face this together," he said to the elder, "and together we will find a way to survive." Captain Ryan Foster sat in the command chair of the frigate Defiance, watching the starfield on his view screen. His ship was one of 12 forming the front line of Earth's defense. Behind them orbited the Luminary moon, now bristling with hastily installed defense platforms. "Anything on long-range sensors, Lieutenant?" Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lieutenant Melissa White shook her head. "Nothing yet, Captain, but our detection range is limited." Ryan nodded. The 48-hour ultimatum from the Alliance had expired 10 minutes ago. An attack could come at any moment. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Greg Baker made final adjustments to the new systems that incorporated Luminary technology. The tiny light beings had shared knowledge that allowed Earth ships to generate quantum-shifted shield harmonics, shields that could predict incoming attacks microseconds before they hit. "Baker to bridge," Greg called through the communication system. "The new shields are online, but they're unstable. I can give you maybe 2 hours at full power before the emitters burn out." "Let's hope that's enough," Ryan replied. "All hands to battle stations." On the moon's surface, the Luminari had fully activated their ancient defense system. Energy flowed through crystal formations across the entire moon, creating a subtle distortion field that would confuse enemy targeting systems. Suddenly, Lieutenant White straightened in her seat. "Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures detected, large fleet incoming." The space in front of them rippled as dozens of Alliance warships emerged from hyperspace. Ryan's throat tightened at the sight. The Alliance fleet outnumbered Earth's defenders by at least 5-1. Their massive battleships dwarfed the largest human vessels. "All ships maintain formation," Admiral Wright's voice came through the fleet-wide channel. "Remember your training. The Luminary defenses will give us an edge they aren't expecting." The lead Alliance vessel transmitted a message to all Earth ships. This is your final opportunity to withdraw. The Alliance Council has claimed this moon as a protected resource zone. Your presence is unauthorized. Admiral Wright's response was brief. We do not recognize your claim to this moon or its inhabitants. The Luminari are under Earth's protection, by mutual agreement. Without further communication, the Alliance fleet moved forward, weapons charging. They're targeting the outer defense platforms first, Melissa reported. Bring us about, Ryan ordered. Intercept course. Weapons hot. The Defiant surged forward, joined by 2 other frigates. As the Alliance ships fired their first volley, Ryan braced for impact. But something unexpected happened. The Luminari defense field activated fully, surrounding the entire moon in a subtle shimmer. The Alliance weapons fired, but their targeting was off by crucial degrees. Most shots missed completely. It's working, Melissa exclaimed. Their targeting systems can't compensate for the quantum field. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Now it's our turn. Fire all weapons. Pattern Alpha. The Earthships launched their counterattack. Unlike the Alliance vessels, their targeting systems had been calibrated to work with the luminary field. Their shots hit with surprising accuracy, causing damage to several Alliance cruisers. The battle intensified as the Alliance adjusted their strategy, sending fighters in close where targeting was less affected by the distortion field. The human fleet responded by tightening their formation, creating overlapping fields of defensive fire. On the bridge of the Defiance, Ryan watched as his crew fought with determination against overwhelming odds. The new shield technology was working better than expected, predicting incoming fire and adjusting to block it milliseconds before impact. The Resolute is taking heavy damage, Melissa reported, referring to one of their sister ships. Move us in to cover them, Ryan ordered. Divert auxiliary power to forward shields. The battle raged for over an hour. Despite being outnumbered, the Earth fleet held its ground, protecting the Luminari moon with fierce determination. The Alliance, clearly frustrated by their inability to quickly overwhelm the defenders, began to target the moon's surface directly. They're trying to bombard the main crystal formations, Melissa warned. If they destroy those, the defense field will collapse. Ryan made a quick decision. All power to engines. Get us between those battleships and the moon. Greg's voice came through with alarm. Captain, the shields can't take that kind of punishment. We don't have a choice, Ryan replied. Those formations house thousands of Luminari. We can't let them be destroyed. The Defiance moved into position, taking fire meant for the moon's surface. Several other Earth ships followed suit, creating a protective screen above the most critical areas. As damage reports flooded in, Ryan opened a channel to the Alliance flagship. What he did next surprised even his own crew. Attention, Alliance Commander, he said, his voice firm. I am transmitting visual data to your ship. I request that you view it immediately. Without waiting for a response, he sent the recordings that had been made of the Luminari communities, their crystal cities, their art, their scientific achievements. Most importantly, he sent the images of them creating the perfect image of Earth, showing their gratitude to the humans who had chosen to protect them. These are the beings you've been harvesting like resources, Ryan continued. They are intelligent, peaceful, and deserving of the same rights as any species in the Alliance. We are not defending resources. We are defending people. For several long moments there was silence. Then, unexpectedly, the Alliance fire slackened. Captain, Melissa said, surprise in her voice. Several Alliance ships are powering down their weapons. On the communication channel, a new voice spoke. Not the fleet commander, but a captain from one of the other Alliance vessels. We were not told they were sentient. Many of us would never have agreed to this action if we had known. Confusion spread through the Alliance fleet. Some ships continued to fire, while others held back, clearly unwilling to continue now that they had seen the truth. After a tense standoff, the Alliance commander ordered a temporary ceasefire. This matter requires further review by the Alliance Council, the commander stated stiffly. We will withdraw to a position at the edge of this system while consultations take place. As the Alliance fleet pulled back, cheers erupted throughout the Earth vessels. They had survived the first engagement, and more importantly, they had caused doubt within the Alliance ranks. On the bridge of the Defiance, Ryan allowed his crew a moment of celebration before turning to his first officer. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "The Alliance won't give up so easily, but we've bought some time and maybe changed a few minds." Down on the moon's surface, the Luminary observed the battle from their crystal chambers. They had existed for centuries by hiding, by being overlooked. Now, for the first time, another species had seen them, truly seen them, and had risked everything to protect them. In the Crystal Heart Chamber, the Elders began preparations for what might be needed if the Alliance returned in force. They had one last defense, one they had hoped never to use. But if it meant saving both their people and the humans who had become their allies, they would reveal their greatest secret. General Diana Rodriguez paced the floor of the command center on the Luminary moon. 3 days had passed since the first battle, and new intelligence had just arrived from Earth's spy network. "Are you certain this information is accurate?" she asked the communications officer. "Yes, General. Our contacts in the Alliance confirm they've dispatched their main battle fleet. At least 200 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts with planet-killer capabilities." Diana closed her eyes briefly. Earth's entire defense force consisted of 57 ships, many of them damaged from the first engagement. Even with the Luminary defenses, they could not hope to win against such overwhelming force. Ambassador Eric Daniels, who had returned from Earth to help coordinate diplomatic efforts, looked grim. "They're not interested in negotiating anymore. The Alliance leadership feels humiliated that a newcomer species defied them publicly." "Then we need to prepare for the worst," Diana said. "How long until they arrive?" 4 days at most. In another part of the base, the senior Luminary representative named Shimmer pulsed with concerned light patterns as it communicated with Dr. Murphy and other scientists. Though tiny, no larger than a firefly, Shimmer spoke for the Luminary Council and held great authority among its people. "There is something we have not yet shared with humans," Shimmer's translated voice stated. "A capability we developed long ago when we first fled to this moon." Dr. Murphy leaned forward with interest. "What kind of capability?" "Our ancestors did not choose this barren moon by accident," Shimmer explained. "It sits at a juncture of what you might call thin points in spacetime. With enough energy focused through our crystal structures, we can create what your scientists might call a quantum bubble." "A quantum bubble?" Dr. Murphy asked. "What would that do?" "It would temporarily remove this entire moon from normal spacetime," Shimmer said. "We would exist slightly out of phase with the rest of the universe. Untouchable, invisible, but also isolated." The scientists exchanged shocked glances. That's incredible," Dr. Murphy said. "Why haven't you used this before?" Shimmer's light dimmed slightly. "It requires the combined life energy of many thousands of us, and there is risk. If the calculations are wrong, we might become permanently lost between dimensions, unable to return." This information was quickly relayed to General Rodriguez, who called an emergency war council. Representatives from Earth's military, scientific community, and diplomatic corps gathered, along with the Luminary elders. "Let me understand this correctly," Diana said after Shimmer had explained the quantum bubble concept again. "You can essentially make this entire moon disappear, but you might not be able to bring it back?" "Correct," Shimmer replied. "It is a last resort, one we have never implemented." "How long could the bubble be maintained?" asked one of the scientists. "Perhaps 3 of your Earth days before the energy drain becomes too great," Shimmer answered. "After that, we must return or risk losing the ability to do so forever." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Finally, Ambassador Daniels spoke up. "We've received word that several Alliance species are disturbed by the revelation about the Luminary. They've filed formal protests with the Alliance Council, arguing that attacking sentient beings violates their foundational principles." "Will that stop the fleet?" Diana asked. Eric shook his head. "Not in time, but it means there's growing dissent within the Alliance. If we can survive this attack, we might find diplomatic channels reopening. Diana turned to the tactical display showing the approaching Alliance fleet. The quantum bubble might give us the time we need, but we can't ask the Luminari to take this risk alone. We don't, Shimmer responded. We offer this option freely, to save both our peoples. A day later, intelligence reported that the Alliance fleet had increased speed. They would arrive within 48 hours. Throughout the moon base, humans worked alongside Luminari, preparing for multiple scenarios. If the bubble failed, they needed conventional defenses ready. If it worked, they needed supplies to last through the isolation. In the crystal heart chamber, thousands of Luminari gathered to begin preliminary energy alignments. The process of creating the quantum bubble would take nearly a full day to complete. General, Rodriguez received an unexpected communication from one of the Alliance ships that had stayed behind after the first battle. The captain, belonging to a species called the Trilaxians, offered information about the main fleet's attack plan. Not all of us agree with this course of action, the Trilaxian captain said. What we are doing to the Luminari, what we have, done for centuries without acknowledging it. It goes against everything the Alliance was founded to prevent. Diana shared this information with her staff, feeling a glimmer of hope. The Alliance isn't unified on this. If we can survive long enough, we might find allies among them. As preparations continued, Dr. Murphy spent time with Shimmer, learning more about the Luminari history. You mentioned you fled to this moon. Who were you fleeing from? Shimmer's light dimmed to a soft blue glow. A predatory species that saw us only as food or tools. They hunted us across many star systems until we found this place to hide. They are extinct now, but their legacy of fear remained with us. Until humans came, we believed all large species would eventually try to use or destroy us. Not all of us are like that, Dr. Murphy said gently. We know that now, Shimmer replied, its light brightening. That is why we are willing to risk everything to stand with humans. You saw us when no one else would. Early the next morning, General Rodriguez called together all human personnel. The Alliance fleet was now just 24 hours away. The Milia time had come to make their final decision. The Luminari have offered to create their quantum bubble, potentially saving all of us from the Alliance attack, she explained. But there are risks. We might become trapped in another dimension. Anyone who wishes to leave on the remaining transports can do so now, with no judgment. Not a single person stepped forward. Very well, Diana said, her voice thick with emotion. We stand together. In the crystal heart chamber, the activation process began. Thousands of Luminari positioned themselves along precise geometric patterns throughout the crystal formations. Their combined light grew steadily brighter, pulsing in perfect synchronization. Humans and Luminari watched sensor screens as the massive Alliance fleet approached. 200 warships arranged in battle formation, ready to claim the moon and its resources once and for all. Just as the fleet entered the outer reaches of the system, Shimmer gave the signal. The light of 10,000 Luminari surged through the crystal networks, flowing into the very bedrock of the moon. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, a shimmering effect began to spread across the landscape. Stars visible through the base's windows appeared to shift, their light bending around the moon. On the Alliance fleet sensors, something impossible happened. The Luminari moon simply vanished. Half in normal space and half phased out, the moon and everyone on it waited in tense silence, watching as the confused Alliance fleet searched for their suddenly missing target. The quantum bubble had worked. But now the real question remained. When the 3 days were up, would they be able to return? And what would be waiting for them if they did? 3 days passed inside the quantum bubble. For the humans and Luminari trapped on the moon, time seemed to move differently. The stars outside looked strange, smeared and stretched as if viewed through flowing water. Communications with the outside universe were impossible. Admiral Lisa Wright stood in the command center, studying the sensor readings. Even with partial phase shifting, they could detect the Alliance fleet surrounding their last known position. The massive ships hung in space, weapons ready, waiting for the moon to reappear. The energy levels in the crystal network are dropping, Dr. Alan Murphy reported, looking up from his station. The luminary can't maintain the bubble much longer. Lisa nodded grimly. Then we need to prepare for battle the moment we shift back. The 3 days in the quantum bubble had not been wasted. Humans and Luminari had worked together to repair damaged systems and prepare defenses, but everyone knew the truth. They could not win against the full might of the Alliance fleet. As the moment of return approached, Shimmer's light pulsed with unexpected excitement. Something has changed, the Luminari representative announced. The bubble has affected us in ways we did not anticipate. What do you mean? Asked Lisa. Our collective consciousness has evolved during our time between dimensions. We have gained new awareness, new abilities. When we return, we will be more than we were. Before anyone could ask for clarification, the bubble began to collapse. The strange, stretched stars outside started to look normal again. The moon was returning to regular spacetime. All hands to battle stations, Lisa ordered. Prepare for immediate engagement. But as the quantum bubble fully dissolved and the moon snapped back into normal space, they were met with a surprising sight. The Alliance fleet was still there, but no longer in attack formation. Instead, the ships were arranged in a loose defensive perimeter around the moon, as if protecting it. What's happening? Lisa wondered aloud. Are they waiting for us to lower our defenses? Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the Alliance High Commissioner. On the main screen appeared a human face, a man with dark hair and serious eyes. This is High Commissioner Jordan Blake addressing the human and luminary forces. Please respond. Lisa exchanged confused glances with her officers before stepping forward. This is Admiral Wright of Earth Defense Command. Who exactly are you? There was no human High Commissioner in the Alliance when we entered the bubble. The man nodded. A lot has changed in the 3 days you've been gone, Admiral. Or rather, the 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Lisa repeated in shock. Yes. Time passed differently for you inside the bubble. In that time, there has been significant upheaval within the Alliance. When footage of the luminary communities and the initial battle was leaked throughout Alliance space, civil unrest followed. Many citizens were outraged to learn they had been harvesting sentient beings unknowingly for centuries. The command center fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. 7 member species formally withdrew from the Alliance in protest. Blake continued. Others demanded immediate reform. 3 days ago, a coalition of moderate Alliance leaders, with support from many worlds, removed the previous leadership and established an emergency council. And they appointed a human as High Commissioner? Lisa asked skeptically. Blake smiled slightly. It was a symbolic choice. Humanity proved willing to risk everything to protect a species that everyone else had overlooked. The Alliance needed that perspective. I was Ambassador Daniel's deputy before all this began. In the crystal chamber deep below the surface, the Luminari were experiencing their own revelations. The quantum bubble experience had changed them fundamentally. Their collective consciousness had expanded, allowing them to perceive and manipulate quantum fields with unprecedented precision. Shimmer conveyed this to Dr. Murphy with excitement. We have evolved. The time between dimensions accelerated changes that would have taken thousands of years naturally. What kind of changes? Alan asked. In response, thousands of Luminari gathered in the chamber, their lights pulsing in harmony. Slowly, a field of energy formed in the center of the room. Not just light, but actual matter being created and shaped through quantum manipulation. We can now directly convert energy to matter and back again, Shimmer explained. We can heal, build, create in ways we never could before. As negotiations began between Earth, the Luminari, and the Reformed Alliance, it became clear that the universe had fundamentally changed. High Commissioner Blake proposed a new treaty, the Luminari Accords, which would formally recognize the rights of all sentient species regardless of size, appearance, or technological development. Admiral Wright led the negotiations from the human side, insisting on guarantees that would protect both Earth and the Luminary from future exploitation. The reformed alliance, eager to make amends, agreed to most demands. 1 week later, representatives gathered in a newly constructed chamber on the Luminary moon. The crystalline room had been created by the Luminari themselves, using their new matter manipulation abilities. It was large enough to accommodate beings of all sizes, from the tiniest Luminari to the largest Alliance species. High Commissioner Blake stood at the center, flanked by Admiral Wright and Shimmer, whose light now pulsed with complex patterns that hinted at the Luminary's evolved consciousness. "Today we acknowledge a grave injustice that continued for centuries," Blake began. "The oversight or willful ignorance that allowed a sentient species to be harvested as resources ends now. The Luminary Accords established new principles for interspecies relations where value is not determined by size, military power, or technological advancement, but by the fundamental rights of all thinking beings." As the representatives signed the document, the Luminari created a spectacular display. Thousands of them flew in perfect formation throughout the system, generating a light show visible from every planet and ship. Their message was clear. They would no longer hide, no longer be overlooked. In the days that followed, news spread throughout Alliance space of other overlooked species coming forward. Tiny silicon-based life forms living in asteroid belts, microscopic intelligences dwelling in gas giants, energy beings inhabiting stars, species that had hidden or been misclassified as natural phenomena for fear of exploitation. Each one requested human representatives to help them negotiate with the Alliance. Dr. Alan Murphy, who had first detected the Luminary biosignatures, stood with Shimmer on the observatory deck, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Some carried scientists, others diplomats, all eager to learn from what humans and Luminary had accomplished together. "Did you know this would happen?" Alan asked. "When you decided to reveal yourselves to us?" Shimmer's light pulsed gently. "No, we only knew that humans were different. You saw us when others looked past us. You protected us when others would have taken from us. You valued us for who we are, not what you could use us for." "That's just being decent," Alan said with a shrug. "Perhaps," Shimmer replied, "but it changed the galaxy. Every civilization overlooked us, until humanity chose to protect us. And now, no one will be overlooked again." In orbit above them, the first joint human Luminary research vessel prepared for its maiden voyage. Its mission to seek out other overlooked species and offer them a place in the new galactic community. A community where being small or different no longer meant being invisible. The universe had changed because one species had taken the time to look closer, to see value in the overlooked, and to stand against overwhelming odds to protect those who could not protect themselves.